Let's see what the sources say about the plagues of darkness. A big shkoyach to everybody. I enjoyed your answers a lot. So now we're going to go through, I don't know if we'll get through all 20, but first we have the Midrash Tanchuma writes that the Jewish people were sinners in Egypt. That they didn't want to, most of the Jewish people, the overwhelming majority of them, did not want to leave Egypt. I find this shocking, but if we were given an opportunity to have redemption right now, if Mashiach showed up, what percentage of the Jews in America would say we want to go? Probably less than 20%. And so therefore what happened was when the plague of darkness happened for Egypt, it was light for the Jewish people. And the Midrash says that the Jewish people died at that moment. So Hashem didn't want the Egyptians to know that there was a plague on the Jewish people. This is the Midrash's first answer. That the Jews were also hit by that plague, and it protected the Jews from embarrassment of their own sins. Something to think about at the Seder, that the Midrash says that the plague of darkness was very much a plague for the Jewish people, but it protected us from publicizing just how bad we are. The Yalkut Shimoni gives another answer, that God said, let darkness, which is separated from light, come and take punishment from the Egyptians that wanted to punish the nation that is separate from the world. Meaning to say that it highlights just like the Jews are distinct, there's nothing more distinct than darkness from light. And so that's what it's showing us, that just as the Jews are distinct, so too we need to show this comparison. It's a way of showing a distinction. Everybody with me still? That's answer number 2. Another answer was that the Egyptians wanted to do darkness on the Jewish people. They wanted to put, citing the verse that Nicole just cited, Egyptians wanted to throw us in a prison. And so therefore, like Ari said, I'm not sure, I think it was Ari who said it, that it was isolating the Egyptians. So just like they tried to isolate us from society, the Egyptians were themselves isolated. Another answer comes from the Midrash Haggadah. Midrash Haggadah, unlike the Midrash which we just cited, which was an ancient Midrash, the Midrash Haggadah was like a medieval Midrash. It says that the Egyptians used to say to the Jew, stand here until I eat. And they would put a candle on their head, and you're not allowed to move. I'm not sure what their source for that is, and they said, if you move, I'll cut off your head with a sword. Okay, that's a very graphic image. And so therefore, so corresponding to this, that they were hit with the plague of darkness. And so that's because I guess the way to translate that into a language I would understand is it highlights one aspect of the cruelty of the Egyptian slavery that they imposed upon the Jewish people. So going through the medieval times, we're now up to Abarbanel. Abarbanel, writing in 14th century, or 15th century, he writes that because the Jewish people are always in the darkness of exile, and it says, "B'machashachem hashivani kimetei olam," it says in the book of Eicha, through darkness God brought me like the dead of the world, and the opposite of exile is redemption. So therefore God struck the Egyptians with the plague of darkness, so to show not the darkness of the Egyptians, but that there would be light for the Jewish people, that there would be redemption. That's the Abarbanel's fifth answer. Basically, it's not the plague of darkness, it's the redemption of the light. Another answer, this is now we're up to number 6. This is the Seder Hayom. He writes that darkness corresponds to speech, meaning to say that you're lo ta'aneh v'recha eid sheker, and so therefore you're not allowed to speak falsely because they go in darkness. So he's saying that I guess it's to prevent or symbolizes that they spoke bad about the Jewish people. Those who don't know, to speak badly about somebody is really speak in darkness. Another answer, this comes from the Chukas HaPesach. meaning to say, it's because it's to demonstrate that the servitude that the Egyptians inflicted upon the Jewish people was not just during the day, but it was also by darkness, that they worked them day and night. And this is atypical, because usually a worker only makes their employee work during the day, because you can't work them 24 hours. But they worked the Jewish people at night. They never let up in their enslavement of the Jews. And the Kli Yakar writes, you know the Kli Yakar, right? So the Kli Yakar writes that this is because, and it's very painful, because a lot of these answers we were reminded of the Shoah, but the Kli Yakar writes, because they caused the Jewish people to hide their babies when they were hiding them from the Egyptians, who tried to kill the babies, they caused them to hide them in the darkness. So because of this, they were inflicted measure for measure with the plague of darkness. The Minchas Eliyahu writes, corresponds to the fact that from Zion and from the temple there will be light, to demonstrate that the Egyptians have darkness. Does anybody have a favorite so far? I'm just throwing out answers. Okay. We'll take a vote at the end. And so therefore, so basically this corresponds to the darkness of Gehenna and the light of the righteous tzaddikim. Spiritually, it goes back to the spiritual light with which the world was created. And it's maybe showing that the Egyptians had no inkling or no insight into the light of the world. So now we go Hasidic. The Zera Shimshon explains that it says, we already referred to Jacob a little bit. It says when Jacob lived, Parshas Vayechi, that it says at that moment, Rashi asked the question, why is that the only passage in the Torah, the only portion that doesn't have a space in front of it? It says, because when Jacob died, the eyes of the Jewish people closed from the darkness of the exile. And so because they closed the eyes of the Jewish people, therefore Hashem closed their eyes. Okay, so another answer, 12th answer, is because the Egyptians worshipped the sun. And so therefore, since they worshipped the sun, they were hit with the plague of darkness. I saw this, Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky said that this explains why we don't make a blessing on the total eclipse, because it's a sign that Hashem is destroying idolatry. But the Chafetz Chaim, they said, used to send everybody out to see the eclipse. The Chafetz Chaim sent people away he sent them out of the yeshiva to go and see the eclipse. Okay, the Chaim LaRoche writes, this one's a little bit, what? It's a beautiful answer, but I just not sure if it's for mixed company, so what? If anybody wants to hear later, I'll share with you. It's not appropriate in a public setting. Okay, the next answer is from the Ibn Ezra. It says that Vayar Elokim, Vayeda Elokim, God saw and God knew. So Vayar means God saw the violence that they did to them in public, and he knew about what they were doing to them in secret. And so since they punished the Jewish people also in secret, for this reason, God brought about the plague of darkness, which is to demonstrate that they punished them in public and in a hidden manner. And also the Egyptians were also robbers and stole. And so somebody, and the Midrash says, if somebody takes money, something that doesn't belong to him, he is going to be struck down with darkness. The Kli Chemda, we have three more answers. The Kli Chemda writes that because they made the Jewish people work before the day started. This is a similar answer to what we saw before. The 18th answer is Hashem did all the miracles, and I guess this is the one that to me resonates the most. Hashem did all the miracles just to show light, give insight to the Egyptians. And they had no insight into the world. They just couldn't see what was so clear to everybody else. So therefore, since they had no recognition of what was going on around them, they had no sight and they had no insight, therefore the darkness demonstrates that. Okay, here's another answer, Hasidic answer, that darkness, the letters of darkness, choshech, you can also mix them up and they spell shachach, the Egyptians forgot what Joseph had done for them. And so finally, we have the 20th answer, minus the one that we skipped. But the 20th answer is so that the Jewish people could search for the treasures of the Egyptians. That's what they did during that time. They found the treasures of the Egyptians. That's the 20th answer. I guess you could talk about this at your Seder. What is the reason for the plague of darkness? We have 20 answers. Probably at your Seder, God willing, you come up with another 20 more. Yeah, I asked her and then I already.